Cek, 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 cek. Cek, cek.
Bandar Lampung adalah sebuah kota di Indonesia dan sekaligus ibu kota dan kota terbesar di Provinsi Lampung. Dengan kepadatan 5.332 km persegi, Bandar Lampung merupakan salah satu kota terpadat di Pulau Sumatera, serta termasuk salah satu kota besar di Indonesia dan kota terpadat di luar Pulau Jawa. Secara geografis, kota ini merupakan gerbang utama Pulau Sumatera, tepatnya sekitar 165 km sebelah barat Laut Jakarta, memiliki andil penting dalam jalur transportasi darat dan pendistribusian logistik dari Jawa ke Sumatera maupun sebaliknya. Kota Bandar Lampung memiliki luas wilayah daratan 169,21 km persegi yang terbagi ke dalam 20 kecamatan dan 126 kelurahan, dan berdasarkan hasil sensus penduduk pada tahun 2020 dengan populasi penduduk 1.166.066 jiwa. Menurut sejarah, wilayah kota Bandar Lampung pada zaman kolonial Hindia Belanda termasuk wilayah Onder Afdeling Teluk Betung yang dibentuk berdasarkan Staatsbalak 1912 nomor 462 yang terdiri dari ibu kota Teluk Betung sendiri dan daerah di sekitarnya. Pada zaman pendudukan Jepang, kota Tanjung Karang Teluk Betung dijadikan kota di bawah pimpinan seorang Shucho dari bangsa Jepang dan dibantu oleh seorang Putu Shucho dari bangsa Indonesia. Sejak zaman kemerdekaan Republik Indonesia, kota Tanjung Karang dan kota Teluk Betung menjadi bagian dari Kabupaten Lampung Selatan sehingga diterbitkannya Undang-Undang Nomor 22 tahun 1948 ini, yang memisahkan kedua kota tersebut dari Kabupaten Lampung Selatan dan mulai diperkenalkan dengan istilah penyebutan kota Tanjung Karang Teluk Betung. Pada perkembangan selanjutnya, status kota Tanjung Karang dan kota Teluk Betung terus berubah dan mengalami beberapa kali perluasan hingga pada tahun 1965 setelah Presiden Lampung dinaikkan statusnya menjadi Provinsi Lampung dengan berdasarkan Undang-Undang Nomor 18 tahun 1965. Kota Tanjung Karang Teluk Betung berubah menjadi kota Madya Daerah Tingkat 2 Tanjung Karang Teluk Betung dan sekaligus menjadi ibu kota Provinsi Lampung. Dan berdasarkan Peraturan Pemerintah Nomor 24 tahun 1983, kota Madya Daerah Tingkat 2 Tanjung Karang Teluk Betung berubah menjadi kota Madya Daerah Tingkat 2 Bandar Lampung. Kemudian berdasarkan keputusan Menteri Dalam Negeri Nomor 43 tahun 1998 tentang perubahan tata naskah dinas lingkungan antar kabupaten kota Madya Daerah Tingkat 2 se-Indonesia dan kemudian ditindaklanjuti dengan keputusan Wali Kota Bandar Lampung Nomor 17 tahun 1999 terjadi perubahan penyebutan dari Pemerintah Kota Madya Daerah Tingkat 2 Bandar Lampung menjadi Pemerintah Kota Bandar Lampung dan tetap dipergunakan hingga saat ini. Hari jadi Kota Bandar Lampung ditetapkan berdasarkan sumber sejarah yang berhasil disesuaikan dan hasil simposium Hari Jadi Kota Tanjung Karang Teluk Betung pada tanggal 18 November tahun 1982 serta Peraturan Daerah Nomor 5 tahun 1983 tanggal 26 Februari 1983 ditetapkan bahwa Hari Jadi Kota Bandar Lampung adalah pada tanggal 17 Juni tahun 1682. Di bidang perhubungan, Kota Bandar Lampung memiliki pelabuhan Panjang yang merupakan pelabuhan ekspor-impor bagi Lampung, dan juga pelabuhan Srensem yang menjadi pelabuhan untuk lalu lintas distribusi batu bara dari Sumatera Selatan ke Jawa. Sekitar 92 km dari selatan kota ini ada Bakauheni yang merupakan kota pelabuhan di Provinsi Lampung. Tepatnya di ujung selatan Pulau Sumatera, ratusan trip penyeberangan dengan kapal feri dari beberapa operator berlayar mengarungi Selat Sunda yang menghubungkan Bakauheni dengan Merak di Provinsi Banten Pulau Jawa. Penyeberangan ini terutama melayani jasa penyeberangan angkutan darat seperti bus-bus penumpang, antar kota antar provinsi, truk-truk barang maupun mobil pribadi. Bandar Lampung merupakan kota besar yang terletak paling selatan di Pulau Sumatera yang otomatis merupakan gerbang masuk Sumatera dari Jawa melalui jalur darat. Adapun sejak tahun 2013, pemerintah kota resmi memiliki flyover atau jalan layang nontol yang berfungsi untuk mengurai kemacetan lalu lintas kota. Adapun letak flyover tersebut adalah sebagai berikut: Jalan Layang Sultan Agung, Antasari Tirtayasa, Gajah Mada Juanda, Himajaratu di Balau, Antasari Gajah Mada, ZA Pagar Alam dan lainnya. Sejak 9 Maret 2019, Jalan Tol Trans Sumatera telah beroperasi penuh dari Bakauheni hingga Terbanggi Besar. Sebelumnya, Kementerian Pekerjaan Umum dan Perumahan Rakyat tengah mempersiapkan pembangunan jalan tol kawasan Bakauheni hingga ke Palembang. Kota Bandar Lampung juga dapat ditempuh melalui udara. Sekitar 14 km dari utara kota terdapat Bandar Udara Raden Intan II yang sudah ditingkatkan statusnya menjadi bertaraf internasional yang melayani untuk kota Bandar Lampung Provinsi Lampung. Di kota ini juga terdapat 4 stasiun kereta api aktif. Salah satunya stasiun Tanjung Karang yang melayani kereta api penumpang menuju kota terbesar di bagian utara Lampung yakni Kota Bumi, dan pelayanan luar provinsi yaitu sampai ke Palembang. Bandar Lampung juga memiliki satu terminal bus besar yaitu Terminal Raja Basa yang merupakan terminal terbesar dan salah satu tersibuk di Sumatera dan Lampung. Selain itu terdapat Terminal Sukaraja yang berada di Teluk Betung dan Pasar Tengah. Terminal Raja Basa ini melayani rute jarak dekat, menengah dan jauh yang melayani rute ke kota-kota di Sumatera dan Pulau Jawa. Di kota Bandar Lampung juga terdapat 46 perguruan tinggi dengan 6 perguruan tinggi negeri dan 40 perguruan tinggi swasta, diantaranya 19 akademi, 16 sekolah tinggi, 1 institut dan 5 universitas. Perguruan tinggi negeri yang terdapat di Bandar Lampung yakni Universitas Lampung, Politeknik Negeri Lampung, Institut Teknologi Sumatera, Universitas Islam Negeri Raden Intan Lampung, Universitas Negeri Bandar Lampung dan Politeknik Kesehatan Tanjung Karang. Sedangkan perguruan tinggi swasta yang terdapat di kota Bandar Lampung yaitu Universitas Malhayati, Universitas Bandar Lampung, Universitas Teknokrat Indonesia, Indosat University of Indonesia dan beberapa perguruan tinggi lainnya. Sebagai ibu kota Provinsi Lampung, kota Bandar Lampung memiliki sarana pelayanan umum yang paling lengkap di provinsi ini, seperti pelayanan kesehatan, rumah ibadah dan keamanan publik seperti kepolisian dan militer. Bandar Lampung juga memiliki beberapa fasilitas olahraga, diantaranya Gor Saburai, Stadion Pahoman, Lapangan Kalpataru Kemiling, Lampung Road Sport Center dan lain-lain. Di kota ini juga terdapat berbagai hotel dari berbintang hingga kelas melati. Topografi kota Bandar Lampung sangat beragam, mulai dari dataran pantai sampai kawasan perbukitan hingga bergunung, dengan ketinggian permukaan antara 0 sampai 500 meter. Daerah dengan topografi perbukitan hingga bergunung membentang dari arah barat ke timur dengan puncak tertinggi pada Gunung Betung sebelah barat dan Gunung di Balau, serta perbukitan Batu Serampok di sebelah timur. Topografi tiap-tiap wilayah di kota Bandar Lampung adalah sebagai berikut. Wilayah pantai terdapat di sekitar Teluk Betung dan Panjang dan pulau di bagian selatan. Wilayah landai atau dataran terdapat di sekitar Kedaton dan Sukarame di bagian utara. Wilayah dataran tinggi dan sedikit bergunung terdapat di sekitar Tanjung Karang bagian barat yaitu wilayah Gunung Betung, Sukadanahan, dan Gunung di Balau serta perbukitan Batu Serampok di bagian timur. Dilihat dari ketinggian yang dimiliki, Kecamatan Kedaton dan Raja Basa merupakan wilayah dengan ketinggian paling tinggi dibandingkan dengan kecamatan-kecamatan lainnya yaitu berada pada ketinggian maksimum 700 mdpl. Ditemui di kota Bandar Lampung yaitu etnis Jawa, Lampung, Sunda, dan Bali. Selain itu juga terdapat pula etnis Melayu, Minangkabau, Tionghoa, Batak dan lain-lain. Ada Smart Carrefour Lampung, Giant Extra, Simpur Center Bandar Lampung, dan lain-lain. Seperti halnya daerah lain di Indonesia, kota ini memiliki beberapa makanan khas seperti seruit, gulai tabok, tempoyak ikan baung, kemplang, dan gabing lempok durian. Kemplang adalah sebuah jenis kerupuk yang digoreng dengan pasir atau dipanggang. Serut sendiri merupakan sebuah masakan dari ikan yang digoreng, boleh juga ikan bakar yang dicampur dengan olahan durian atau disebut tempoyak dan dicampur lagi dengan sambal terasi. Sedangkan gulai taboh merupakan santan yang dimasak dengan aneka isian.
warm greetings to you. To provide Lampungese flavor to this seminar, we would like to present to you a Lampungese welcome dance. Please welcome the Agri Dance.
Tabu pun.
Pinoy Agri Dance is a Lampungese traditional creation dance performed to welcome honorable guests in special occasions. Handing out sa Kapur City will be an icon of this dance, aiming to give honor to the guests. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Tabi pun, the Governor of Lampung Province, represented by the Vice Governor of Lampung, Ibu Hajah Husninya Halim, MSc, MKN, PhD. The Head of Senate, Universitas Lampung, His Excellency, Professor Dr. Langa Zakaria. Rector of Universitas Lampung, Dr. Muhammad Safwan Effendi, MED. Vice Rector for General Administration and Finance Affairs, Professor Dr. Asep Sukohar, Esket, MKes. Vice Rector for Students Affairs and Alumni, Professor Dr. Yulianto, MSc. Vice Rector for Planning, Cooperation, and Information and Communication Technology, Professor Suharso, PhD. The Honorable Ibu Ana Mentari, MPD, as the conference chair. Dean Director of Postgraduate Program, Universitas Lampung. Head of the Institute for Educational Development and Quality Assurance of Universitas Lampung, or the representative. The Head of Institute of Research and Community Service, Universitas Lampung. And all the members of the organizing committee. We would also like to recognize and welcome the distinguished guests, Professor Dr. Flora, MPD, from Universitas Lampung, Indonesia. Professor Peter Charles from Murdoch University, Australia. Associate Professor Dr. Lechmi Devi Ponusami from Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the 4th International Conference on Progressive Education 2022 with the theme of Fostering Synergy and Innovation in Digital Learning Environment. On this special occasion, let's begin this event by reciting Basmalah. First of all, let us say and praise without any obstacles at the 4th International Conference on Progressive Education 2022 with the theme of Fostering Synergy and Innovation in Digital Learning Environments. We would like to request you to all rise because we would like to commence this conference by singing the national anthem of the Republic of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya, that will be led by Bapak Prisma Teja, MPD. Province, please be seated. To express our gratitude to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, I would like to invite Bapak Muhisom MPD to lead our prayer.
Ayuhal hadirin al-kiram, hayya bina naduna ila Allah, asa antakuna majma'al bahram yaum siron jamilah. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammad walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Hamdan syakirin, hamdan na'imin, hamdan ni'amahu wa yukafihu mazidah. Ya Rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalalika wa adimi sultanik. Allahumma jam'ana hadha في International Conference on Progressive Education جمعا مرحوما وتفرقا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل اللهم فينا ولا معنا ولا من يتبعنا شقيا ولا مطرودا ولا محروما اللهم افتح علينا فتوح العارفين وارزقنا فهم النبيين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين Allahumma ja'al auladana wa talamidana fi Universitas Lampung minal ahli ilmi wa ahli khair wa la taj'alna min ahli syarri wa ahli dhair. Allahumma inna na'udzubika minal ilmi la yanfa wa qalbin la yakhsha wa amalin la yurfa wa du'a'un la yusma. Allahumma fa'ana al-ghala wal waba wal fasha wal munkar wa sifal mukhtalifatan wa syahadaida wal mihan ma dhahara minha watan من بلدنا هذا إندونيسيا خاصة ومن بلدان المسلمين عامة إنك على كل شيء قدير ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا ولوالدينا ولمشايخنا ولأستاذنا ولجميع المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Ladies and gentlemen, now please help me welcome the person in charge for the 4th International Conference on Progressive Education 2022, Ibu Ana Mentari MPD, to deliver the committee report.
Before I begin, I would like to inform you that I'm about to deliver my speech welcoming speech in Indonesian, which is in accordance with the differential decree of the Republic of Indonesia number 63 of 2019 on the use of the Indonesian language. Article 27 of the presidential decree mandate the use of Indonesian language in national and international forum held in Indonesia. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, semoga damai menyertai kita semua. Tabibun. Yang terhormat Ibu Hajah Husnunia, yang terhormat Bapak Prof. Dr. La Zakaria, SSI. Eskat MKes, Wakil Rektor Bidang Administrasi dan Keuangan, yang saya hormati Profesor Dr. Yulianto MSI, Wakil Rektor Bidang Kemahasiswaan dan Alumni, yang saya hormati Profesor Suharso PhD, Wakil Rektor Bidang Perencanaan Kerjasama dan Teknologi Informasi Komunikasi, yang saya hormati Profesor Dr. Lusmelia Apriani DIA, selaku Ketua LPPM Universitas Lampung, yang saya hormati Profesor Dr. Insinyur Wan Abbas Zakaria MS, Ketua LP3M Universitas Lampung atau yang mewakili, tamu undangan yang saya hormati.
Recording in progress.
Konferensi ini, kegiatan ini merupakan kegiatan tahunan yang diadakan oleh Fakultas Keguruan dan Ilmu Pendidikan Universitas Lampung. Tahun lalu, ICOPE ketiga tahun 2021, kami menyelenggarakannya pada tanggal 9 Oktober 2021 di Kota Bandar Lampung, Provinsi Lampung, Indonesia. Kami mengundang 4 pembicara utama dari India, Singapura, dan Indonesia untuk membahas tema Competencies in Education Transformation Towards Society 5.0. Hadirin yang berbahagia, ICOPE yang keempat pada tahun 2022 ini merupakan undangan untuk membahas berbagai topik terkait dengan tema konferensi ini. Acara ini diharapkan dapat menjadi forum untuk membahas isu-isu pendidikan terkini. Dengan demikian, konferensi ini bertujuan untuk mempertemukan mahasiswa, guru, akademisi, peneliti, dan praktisi untuk berbagi ide dan temuan penelitian untuk kontribusi pada pengetahuan teoritis dan praktis tentang inovasi teknologi dalam lingkungan pendidikan saat ini. 4 penyajian materi utama terkait dengan tema konferensi akan dipresentasikan hari ini. Dr. Lesmi Devi Ponusami dari Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, akan mempresentasikan topik mengenai differentiation and today diverse classroom. Asok Profesor Dr. Muhammad Hanafi bin Muhammad Yasin dari UKM Malaysia akan mendiskusikan topik mengenai Universal Design to Better Assessment. Keynote paper ketiga tentang Transformative STEM Education for Promoting Sustainable Development akan dipresentasikan oleh Profesor Peter Charles dari Murdoch University, Australia. Dan topik Providing Input in Learning English Through Interaction in Foreign Language Setting akan dipresentasikan oleh Profesor Dr. Flora dari Universitas Lampung, Indonesia. Saudara-saudara sekalian yang saya banggakan, konferensi ini dihadiri oleh lebih dari 300 peserta yang berasal dari Indonesia, Australia, China, India, dan Malaysia. Kami menerima sebanyak 243 abstrak, hampir setengahnya ditolak dengan total 157 makalah lengkap diterima untuk dipresentasikan dalam acara ini. Naskah yang diterima, dipresentasikan, dan terpilih akan diterbitkan dalam proceeding konferensi internasional bereputasi dengan ketentuan mengikuti syarat dan ketentuan yang berlaku. Sebagai informasi, kami juga akan mengumumkan presenter terbaik pada konferensi hari ini setelah sesi paralel berakhir. Oleh karena itu, kami berharap Bapak Ibu semua dapat memberikan penampilan terbaik selama sesi. Akhir kata, kami berharap para penyaji, peserta, dan masyarakat umum dapat mengambil manfaat dari acara ini. Semoga Bapak Ibu semuanya dapat mengikuti konferensi ini dengan baik, dan kami sangat berharap untuk dapat mempublikasikan temuan Bapak Ibu semua. Terima kasih. Irian Cendrawasih, cukup sekian dan terima kasih. Saya akhiri, wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ibu Ana Mentari MPD, for the report. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Now we would like to request the honor from the Vice Governor of Lampung, Ibu Hajah Husnunia Halim, MSI, MKN, PhD, to kindly proceed to the stage to deliver the opening remarks and also to officiate the 4th International Conference on Progressive Education 2022. For the online participants, you can please turn on your CC button for the subtitle.
So, let me speak in Bahasa. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Tapi pun yang saya hormati bersama Ketua Senat Universitas Lampung, Bapak Profesor Dr. La Zakaria SSI MSc, yang saya hormati Bapak PLT Rektor Universitas Lampung yang bergabung bersama kita secara virtual, Bapak Dr. Muhammad Sofwan Effendi MID, yang saya hormati para Wakil Rektor Universitas Lampung yang juga bergabung bersama kita secara virtual, yang saya hormati seluruh dekan Universitas Lampung yang hadir langsung ataupun secara virtual ataupun diwakili, yang saya hormati para keynote speakers, Profesor Peter Charles dari Murdoch University Australia, Bapak Profesor Dr. Moh Hanafi dari Universiti Bangsaan Malaysia, yang saya hormati Dr. Lesmi Devi Ponusami dari Nanyang Technological University Singapura, Ibu Profesor Dr. Flora MPD dari Universitas Lampung, seluruh peserta Seminar Internasional ICOPE 2022 yang saya banggakan. Syukur Alhamdulillah, mari bersama kita panjatkan Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala atas seluruh keberkahan kepada kita semua, kesehatan, sehingga hari ini kita bisa bersama berkegiatan secara fisik maupun virtual di kegiatan seminar ICOPE 2022. Semoga kegiatan berjalan dengan baik dan lancar dan tentu bermanfaat secara umum untuk seluruh warga Lampung dan secara khusus dalam hal bidang pendidikan. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, mengawali sambutan, saya menyampaikan salam dari Bapak Gubernur, Bapak Arinal Junaidi. Assalamualaikum. Beliau menugaskan saya untuk hadir di kegiatan kali ini. Beliau sangat memberikan atensi dengan kegiatan kita hari ini, terkhusus juga beliau sangat memberikan atensi kepada Universitas Lampung. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, sesuai tema ICOPE tahun ini, Fostering Synergy of Innovation in Digital Learning Environment, tema tersebut bermakna membina sinergi dan inovasi dalam pelajaran digital. Sesuai yang kita alami, kita rasakan pasca adanya pandemi COVID-19. Meskipun sebelum adanya COVID-19, kita pun sudah melaksanakan pendidikan yang mulai bergeser ke arah dunia digital. Namun keberadaan pandemi mempercepat secara komprehensif semakin banyak kegiatan-kegiatan kita di berbagai bidang, termasuk juga terkhusus dunia pendidikan, itu bergeser ke dunia digital. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, pandemi hanya mempercepat, bukan memaksa kita pindah. Karena ada pandemi atau tidak ada pandemi, pasti tidak terelakkan perubahan termasuk ke dunia digital. Ketika 2020-2021, dunia pendidikan kita seperti dihentak. Awalnya kita tidak berpikir penyakit atau faktor kesehatan bisa merembet ke semua faktor ikut terimbas adanya pandemi COVID-19. Namun faktanya sekolah tiba-tiba di stop, tapi karena ini pendidikan mungkin tidak seperti beberapa bidang yang lain, pariwisata bisa di hold dulu, kemudian yang lain-lain ibaratnya transportasi masih bisa kita minimkan dahulu. Tidak demikian pendidikan, karena kebutuhan pendidikan sama seperti kebutuhan pangan, sama seperti kebutuhan kesehatan. Kebutuhan pendidikan adalah kebutuhan pokok terutama generasi kita di usia pendidikan. Maka mau tidak mau kita berakobat, berjumpalitan, memikirkan segala daya upaya kita agar hak mendapatkan pendidikan bagi anak-anak kita tetap diperoleh. Walaupun di tengah situasi yang amat sangat berat dan sulit sekali di tengah pandemi COVID-19, situasinya sulit, akhirnya bergeser kita ke pola pelaksanaan pendidikan daring atau konsekuensi akibat adanya teknis yang tidak memungkinkan bertemu atau offline. Dunia digital itu keniscayaan. Kita semua mengetahui perubahan-perubahan di berbagai bidang itu luar biasa cepatnya, bahkan di atas yang bisa kita prediksi. Berkali lipat kecepatannya di atas yang bisa kita perkirakan. Maka dunia pendidikan juga punya pelajaran yang sangat berharga pada 2 tahun kemarin. Ini penting untuk berbicara bersama di forum-forum seperti ini. Bagaimana formulasi dunia pendidikan yang tahan banting, salah satunya adalah dengan kita geser ke dunia digital. Artinya fleksibel dan universal, dan sebenarnya banyak sisi-sisi positif di dunia digital, namun tidak minim atau tidak kosong, kita tidak boleh salah menghitung dampak negatifnya. Jadi keberadaan dunia digital yang banyak kemudahan-kemudahan di dalamnya, tidak mengenal ruang dan waktu, tidak terbatas dengan posisi dan lain sebagainya, fleksibel, bisa dilakukan kapan saja, di mana saja, bahkan sembari melakukan aktivitas yang lain pun masih memungkinkan dilakukan, di sela-sela mengatur waktunya, tinggal pinter-pinter memanage waktunya. Bahkan kita hari ini bisa bersama-sama siapa di mana, bahkan di benua lain pun bisa dalam satu forum, bisa dalam satu komunikasi. Begitu banyak positifnya dunia digital ini, tapi ada ruang-ruang yang lemah mungkin masih kita harus perhitungkan, terutama dunia pendidikan. Bagaimanapun masih masa transisi. Kita yang sangat terbiasa bersentuh fisik, kita yang sangat terbiasa melihat mimik muka dengan detail, ketika di dunia digital kita tidak semaksimal seperti dunia offline. Padahal untuk transformasi knowledge, transformasi ilmu pengetahuan, frekuensi komunikasi antara pemberi informasi dengan penerima informasi sangat menentukan ilmunya terserap apa tidak. Maka beberapa hal atau ruang-ruang yang mungkin saja masih kurang atau lowong perlu kita perhitungkan. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, kepada seluruh para pakar yang hari ini menjadi keynote speakers serta para peserta kegiatan ICOPE, kami tentu berterima kasih kegiatan semacam ini sangat dibutuhkan hari-hari ini oleh semua pihak. Tidak kami sangat berterima kasih karena meskipun kami pemerintahan ini belum bisa banyak berpikir sampai ke arah sini karena begitu banyak hal yang harus dikerjakan, tapi dunia akademik mengisinya dan ini sangat kami butuhkan. Karena kebijakan yang diambil oleh pemerintah tentu butuh informasi yang luas dan dunia pendidikan sangat memahami seluk-beluknya, detailnya, dan ketika nanti pemerintah mengambil kebijakan dalam bentuk peraturan kah, afirmasi budget kah, itu semua berbasis analisa yang oleh ahli dan sumbernya yang tepat, expertnya yang tepat. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, selanjutnya kami mengucapkan selamat melaksanakan seminar. Semoga kegiatan ICOPE 2022 ini dapat menghasilkan rumusan-rumusan yang betul-betul aplikatif, kemudian juga menjawab tantangan-tantangan di era masa kini yang penuh dengan kejutan-kejutan pembaharuan. Tapi kita meyakini dunia bergerak ke arah yang positif, perubahan-perubahannya bergerak ke arah kemajuan peradaban yang berhati-hati, jangan sampai generasi kita ada yang tidak terbawa gerbong ke kemajuan, tapi kakinya jeblos ke lubang, karena pasti ada ketika ada pergerakan, ada yang lubang-lubang yang harus kita tutup agar tidak sampai membuat cilaka, kira-kira begitu. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, sebelum saya mengakhiri sambutan ini, saya ingin sampaikan pantun untuk Bapak Ibu semua. Ke Lampung makan ikan pindang, ditemani seruit, mantap rasanya. Mari bersama-sama mengoptimalkan inovasi digital pendidikan, pendidikannya maju, rakyatnya Lampung berjaya. Demikian Bapak Ibu, sukses untuk kita semua, sukses untuk generasi kita. Memikirkan pendidikan untuk generasi kita sama dengan menyiapkan masa depan kita. Karena generasi kita adalah masa depan kita, masa depan bangsa. Semoga kita bisa bergandeng tangan, bergotong royong, bersama-sama mewujudkan dan mencerdaskan anak-anak Indonesia agar Indonesia terus maju dan jaya. Allahumma fiq ila komitari. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We would like to request Ibu Husnunia Halim to stay on stage and invite the head of Senate, the Dean of Faculty of Teacher Training and Education, the head of Institute of Research and Community Service, Universitas Lampung, and the keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Flora MPD, to come forward because now it's time to officiate the conference by hitting the gong. On my count, 1, 2, 3. Thank you. And now it's time for the photo session. We invite all the dean, the guests to come forward. We're about to proceed the photo session. We have all our photographers ready here to take some shots. Show your best smiles, Bapak, Ibu. Yes, it's fine to open the mask and show your best smiles. 1, 2, 3. Lampung berjaya. All right. Thank you. Continue our next agenda, I would like to invite the PLT Rector of Universitas Lampung, Dr. Muhammad Safwan Effendi, MED, to give his statement speech.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Good morning everyone. Tabi pun. Yang saya hormati Ibu Haji Kusnulina Kholim, MSc PhD, Wakil Gubernur Provinsi Lampung. Yang saya hormati Bapak Profesor Dr. Zakaria SSI MSc, Ketua Senat Universitas Lampung. Yang saya hormati para semua wakil rektor Universitas Lampung, yang saya hormati seluruh dekan, direktur pasca sarjana dan kepala lembaga, baik kepala LPPM maupun kepala LP3M, yang insya Allah hadir secara luring pada konferensi kali ini. Yang saya hormati dan sangat berterima kasih kepada seluruh panitia, kecuali terutama Ibu Ana Mentari selaku PIC dari konferensi ini. Distinguished keynote speaker Professor Peter Charles from the Murdoch University Australia, Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Hanafi from University Kebangsaan Malaysia, Dr. Lakshmi Devi Ponusami from the Nanyang Technological University Singapore, and Profesor Dr. Flora MPD dari Universitas Lampung, Indonesia. Ibu Wakil Gubernur, Bapak Ibu sekalian, mohon maaf saya hadir secara daring dalam konferensi kali ini. Allow me to speak in Bahasa Indonesia and English. It gives me the great pleasure to welcome all participants to the 4th International Conference on Progressive Education, ICOPE 2022, which is being organized by the Faculty of Teacher Training and Education of the University of Lampung. We appreciate your participation in this virtual conference. I would also like to thank the Institute for Research and Community Services of the 4th University of Lampung for supporting this event, particularly the conference chair on co-chairs, who members who have worked tirelessly to ensure the conference's success on daily basis. Let me express my delights at seeing so many participants from all over Indonesia, from Aceh to East Nusa Tenggara, as well as from Australia, China, India, and Malaysia. This level of interest emphasis to the significance of the occasion. This conference serves as a venue for presenting specific alternative and significant breakthrough in the rapid transformation on education in Indonesia especially. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, ladies and gentlemen, Indonesia's education system is undergoing a massive transformation, driven by 4 systemic change in the country. The 4 change of shifting economy, changing socioculture and demography, different job market landscape, and Indonesian Vision 2045. Indonesia need well-educated, noble, adaptive, and collaborative human capital to achieve the Nation 2045 development goal, which are based on 4 pillars. First, human development and science and technology mastery. The second, sustainable economic development. The third, equitable development. And the last, strengthening national resilience and governance. Furthermore, tertiary education is facing 4 major issues that reduce the sector potential from them contributing optimally to innovative education and research. The issue allow industry linkage between academic and professional matters. Stringent regulation and requirement, rigid curriculum, and notable gap in faculty competency. In order to make the significant transformation, institutions of higher education in Indonesia are now seeking collaboration with international partners. To support and foster such collaboration, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology has launched 5 policies. The first policy is matching fund for research and academic partnership. Second policy, visiting scholar program. The third policy is emancipated learning through the fully accredited 1 semester program outside in the campus. Fourth policy, undergraduate and graduate scholarship. And the last policy, setting up presence of foreign campus in Indonesia. Indonesia offers tremendous opportunity for research and innovation across all areas, environment, social cultures, health, technology, and many others. In the recent years, Indonesia's progressive research agenda has started showing commercially viable results in a wide range of sectors, from food to social humanities. Going forward, Indonesian research will focus on 6 priority areas. The first focus is devices, and the last focus appropriate technology and STEM. The Ministry of Education, Culture, Research and Technology provides matching fund for any research output support, financial or in kind, that are given to any university based in Indonesia. It means every $1 research support given to any higher education institution in Indonesia, the ministry will also provide $1 to the research program. This includes financial research support for research funding on non-financial contribution, such as lab equipment, access to database, faculty exchange program, etc. Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati, ladies and gentlemen, let us look more closely confront them, fostering synergy and innovation in digital learning environment. Today, we can hardly deny that technology reigns supreme in all aspects of life, including education, seperti tadi yang dinyatakan oleh Ibu Wakil Gubernur. Moreover, during the time of post-pandemic of COVID-19, school and higher education institutions have been utilizing the full support of technology to optimize blended or hybrid learning. In other words, technology is really plays a vital role in favor of making education keep going. We also know that the world has changed dramatically and the result of globalization and technological advancement. We are in the midst of digital transformation that has the potential to reshape not only industry, but also customs, culture, and of course, learning and instruction. To move towards the so-called society 5.0, we must harmonize our competency in education transformation. The pandemic has also forced us to go to digital. As a result, today's digital transformation necessitates collaboration with a variety of stakeholders via various research and innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have implemented a number of digital transformation at the University of Lampung, including improved governance, of information management system for staff and students, digital teaching and learning experiences, and enhance through new and network and international collaboration. Regardless of the numerous obstacles ahead, we will continue to work to improve the transformation. As a result, the international conference ICOPE 2022 is consist with the University of Lampung mission. And in this online forum, I believe the transfer of information and knowledge, research finding, and other pertinent issues necessary to support education transformation is now underway. Participants will have the opportunity to interact with the keynote speaker during the plenary session and with other researchers or experts during the parallel session at the scientific meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, Bapak Ibu saya hormati, I believe today's conference will be stimulating and interesting. Please take advantage of this opportunity to interact fully in this online environment, to share your experience and generate ideas for a better future. As a result, this event will bring together scholars, academic, researchers, experts, practitioners, and university students to share their perspective, experience, research finding, in order to gain a deeper understanding and also the solution for education transformation. In conclusion, my words, saya berterima kasih kepada Ibu Hajah Kusnunina Kholim, MSc PhD, Wakil Gubernur Provinsi Lampung yang sudah memberi arahan dan sekaligus membuka secara resmi the 4th International Conference Pendidikan di Indonesia. Terima kasih. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Sofwan Effendi, MED. And now it's time for the online photo session. For online participants, please turn on your camera. For all online participants, please turn on your camera.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We'll take a picture from the first page. On my count, show your best smile. 1, 2, 3.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Perkenalkan, saya adalah Dekan FKIP Mila. Nama saya Pak Raja. Pertama-tama saya ingin mengucapkan selamat datang. Selamat kepada mahasiswa Unila tahun ajaran 2020-2021. Alhamdulillah dalam keadaan yang tidak normal masih dapat kita menempuh proses fase-fase penerimaan mahasiswa baru sehingga kita semua dapat melakukan penerimaan mahasiswa baru. Kemudian juga selamat kepada mahasiswa FKIP Unila yang jumlahnya kurang lebih 1.200 orang. Selamat datang di FKIP ini. Sebelumnya barangkali FKIP ini adalah satu dari segi usia. Kemudian di dalam FKIP itu ada 4 jurusan. Jurusan ilmu pendidikan, jurusan pendidikan IPS, jurusan pendidikan bahasa dan seni, dan jurusan pendidikan MIPA, matematika dan ilmu pengetahuan alam. Di bawah 4 jurusan itu ada 18 program studi S1. Nah, adik-adik yang baru datang ini jumlah 2.200 orang itu terbagi dalam 18 prodi S1. Selain itu juga ada 10 prodi S2, ada 1 prodi PPG, profesi pendidikan profesi guru, dan insya Allah dalam waktu dekat ada 1 prodi S3 doktor. Jadi sekali lagi saya mengucapkan selamat datang kepada mahasiswa baru. Selamat menjadi bagian dari keluarga besar FKIP. Selama 4 tahun, 5 tahun ke depan, adik-adik semua, anak-anak semua akan digembleng sehingga menjadi lulusan yang insya Allah akan membanggakan, menjadi kebanggaan tidak hanya bagi FKIP, tidak hanya bagi Unila, tapi juga bagi orang tua. Jadi intinya sekali lagi selamat datang, selamat bergabung pada keluarga besar FKIP Unila, FKIP Unila Jaya.
Saudara-saudara mahasiswa baru yang saya banggakan bahwa FKIP Universitas Lampung saat ini juga sudah melaksanakan yang namanya programnya Mas Menteri, yaitu program Merdeka Belajar dan Kampus Merdeka. Ada beberapa pilihan nanti ketika Anda masuk ke FKIP, yaitu ada yang namanya pertama adalah asistensi mengajar di sekolah. Ini adalah salah satu program pilihan yang nanti akan Anda ambil kalau Anda sudah mulai semester 6 atau semester 7. Dan apa saja mata kuliah yang masuk ke dalam asistensi mengajar? Yang pertama adalah KKN, kuliah kerja nyata. Ini adalah
Ladies and gentlemen, the first keynote session will be led by Bapak Gede Eka Putrawan SS Mhum. Bapak Gede Eka Putrawan SS Mhum is a lecturer as well as a researcher in Universitas Lampung, particularly in Faculty of Teacher Training and Education. He achieved his bachelor's and master's degree from Universitas Udayana, Bali, Indonesia. He has also published plenty of exceptional articles in national and international reputable journals, and the newest one entitled Technology and Language Learning, EFL Learners' Use of Smartphones for Online Informal Learning in Indonesia, published in Texte Libre Journal. He's also an awardee of our PDP scholarship for doctorate degree and about to continue his study to Monash University, Australia. Now please help me welcome Bapak Gede Eka Putrawan SS Mhum, who will lead the keynote session for
first two keynote speakers, Dr. Lakshmi Devi Panusami and Associate Professor Dr. Hanafi Yassin. And I'd like to, before we begin, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Gede Kaputrawan. I'm introducing myself again. And I am a faculty member in the Department of Language and Arts Education, Universitas Lampung, Indonesia. I would like to say hi to Dr. Latsmi and Dr. Hanafi. Dr. Latsmi and Dr. Hanafi, how are you doing?
Hello, how are you?
Hi, hello, I'm good.
Assalamualaikum.
And I'd like to explain a bit about the first keynote session. And the first keynote presentations will be delivered by Dr. Latsmi, 25, 30 minutes, and followed by questions and answer sessions for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then the second keynote presentations will be presented by Associate Professor Dr. Hanafi Yassin, and you will have about 25-30 minutes keynote presentation, followed by a 15-minute questions and answer session. Now let's move on to our first keynote speaker, Dr. Latsmi Devi Panasamy. I'd like to introduce the first keynote speaker to everyone. Dr. Latsmi Devi Panasamy is currently Assistant Dean with the Graduate and Professional Learning Office and a senior lecturer with the Psychology, Child and Human Development Academic Group at the National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. Her areas of interest include high ability studies, differentiation, curriculum innovations. She has over 15 years of experience in educational research, and Dr. Latsmi has also acquired competitive education research grants from the Ministry of Education, Singapore. She is currently the principal investigator of a research that studies teachers' beliefs and practices with differentiated instructions. And she has been involved in speaking at a large number of international conferences. She has also published a lot of peer-reviewed journal articles, book chapters, and books on curriculum for high ability learners published by Springers. Dr. Latsmi, without further ado, you have 25-30 minutes to present your keynote speech, and then we're going to have a 15-minute and answer session. Over to you, Dr. Latsmi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gede, for that very kind introduction. I hope you can hear me. Allow me to share my screen. I think you can see it now.
Yes, clear.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah. So, as was mentioned earlier, the subject of my speech this morning is very. Now, one of the from your guest, the assistant governor's inputs, it is very interesting to understand that the reality on the ground is that digitalization doesn't solve all the problems of learning. So what I think we have to realize is that while the internet offers some affordances for gaining knowledge online, right? One of the things that we always have to think about is how do kids gain insights about what they're reading and learning online. What we want to do is, while they can read on digital media, we want them to have a chance to make sense and develop new ideas about what's happening online. And so one of the things we have to do is provide them with those opportunities in the classroom so that they can manage change and they can actually deal with, the knowledge economy, the economy that thrives on what do they know and how can they contribute. All that is going to have to happen within the digital environment. So in that sense, if each child needs to understand their own, growth, they have to learn and make meaning of what they are learning, then differentiation is absolutely important. It's at the core and center of all your work or teachers' work in the classroom. So that's the basic context. I mean, I'm just trying to paint for you in a very brief line why differentiation should actually be an important part of our decisions with regards to dealing with the digital media, the digital environment. So having talked a lot about why it's important, let's just stop for a while and ask what differentiation is. And a lot of the work that I do actually begins with three very important questions, actually. What is differentiation? Why is it important? And how can we do it? So the what, why, and the how are the key questions I want to answer in the next 20 minutes. So first of all, what is differentiation, right? So the first important definition I'd like to fall back on is stuff that is done by a very important person in the field of differentiation, Carol Ann Tomlinson. She's written extensively about it. So I have modified her most recent definition and I've just laid it out for you here. So let's unpack this a little bit. Differentiation refers to the teacher's belief in, recognition of, an adaptive response to meeting diverse learning needs. So that's why we're worried about beliefs and why are we worried about adaptive response and what do we mean by maximizing learners' progress, right? So the first part is about belief, recognition, and adaptive response. Why are we talking about teachers' belief? Okay, the reason is because obviously we all know that our beliefs are very powerful because they drive our actions. And the same thing goes for teachers as well. So if you believe that each learner needs to gain meaning, then you will act in those ways, right? And one of the things that researchers told us is that if a teacher even has an informal perception of a student's difference, for example, if I walk around in classroom and I watch a child being very disruptive, right, and doesn't really follow instruction, that's going to affect how I work as a teacher with the learner, right? And that's very interesting because it means that if we actually perceive that children are disruptive, our reactions to them can be quite different. And this is an important part of the work of teachers, because when you instruct, we don't just teach the subject, we teach the child. And therefore, we need to kind of help teachers believe in differentiation, recognize what it is, and then work in those actions. So the belief is a very important part of the whole process of differentiation. However, one of the things we found is that there's a lot of lack of understanding of what this thing called differentiation is. In my work, Mr. Gedde mentioned the recent research project that I have. As I go out to schools, even in Singapore, despite all the years of advancement we have in meeting learners' needs, there's always a complex process of unpacking what teachers are trying to do with each learner, because we are very used to the way we used to be taught. And if you remember when you went to school, fundamentally it was the same lesson that was taught to all children. So there's a lot of lack of professional experiences with learning. We don't have any exposure to it. We also have lots of misconceptions about what learning is. And this starts not just when you teach, but from the day you go into school, your understanding of what is teaching and learning and how you will transform your learning is actually affected by who you interacted with in primary school all the way up to your pre-service experience, and then now, of course, as a teacher in the classroom. So it's actually a very powerful process. And one of the things that differentiation requires is that the teacher's belief in that adaptive response is gradually grown as we go through the process. So that's the first part of what differentiation is. The second part of differentiation is really about the learner, right? So what do we have to do with the learner? We have to maximize their learning. So what does that mean, really? Okay, how can we understand this? What do you mean by maximizing? I want to go back to good old Lev Vygotsky. And I think in your early years, when you were starting out as a teacher, those of you who are still in teacher training or who are working as instructors may have heard of this very, very important description of what education is going to be in a child. So let's look at that a little bit, right? So first of all, okay, I've got a very, very quick picture here, and I think the picture tells 1,000 words, or in fact, different people have different reactions to this. First of all, you'll see that there are three areas. There's the light blue area, there's the pink area, and there's the purple area right in the center. So what basically Lev Vygotsky was trying to say, along the way, they get guidance. They get guidance from either the parents or other children. Sometimes they get guidance by watching other people, but fundamentally there is some kind of process of learning which allows the child to go from an area of not knowing what to do to an area of doing it with guidance and then finding it on their own. Now, this process, in the pink area where children get guidance is exactly where differentiation is. It's the process where we core goal of differentiation. The second, so in a sense, when I say that we want to maximize learning, we're trying to create that guidance space so that the kid can go from the light blue space to the purple space.
Recording in
And then
progress.
think of strategies. But when we talk about learning needs, how do we understand? We have a class full of 40. What do you mean by learning needs? Are we saying we have 40 different kids and 40 different needs to deal with? Now, we all know that classroom teaching is a very complex process and you can't teach for 40 children at the same time. So one of the things that we like to think about in terms of learning needs is to see them as 3 key learner differences, which are very important as a teacher planning lessons in the classroom. The first one, of course, is readiness. How ready is your kid learning in the classroom? What does that mean? Readiness. Readiness means are they does that mean they know everything I'm going to teach, or does that mean they can teach another person with it? What does readiness means? And I'm going to borrow from Tomlinson again. The first important point is we know that readiness depends on how much knowledge they have of something that they learned in the past, right? So an important part of how kids can learn and go from a place where they don't know to some place where they know and do on their own is the fact that they have some kind of knowledge about some prior knowledge about the topic or about something that they're learning. Important part of readiness is also language skills, because you can't learn something without a proper understanding of how the language works. So if right now I'm speaking to all of you in English, and I'm sure those of you who are not who don't commonly use English are struggling with trying to figure out what I'm trying to say. And of course, thankfully, Zoom offers the affordances of having, some level of subtitling. But even that is a struggle. So if children are not used to school or haven't gone to school yet, like in early years, they often struggle with what is teacher trying to tell me? So that's an important part of readiness. And then finally, whether the child has any experience of going to school and using the language in a formal context. Because sometimes when children are at home or in their villages or in their hometowns, they often use language in a very informal way. So when you come to school, you then have to say, okay, what is my teacher trying to say? What are some of the experiences I can bring to this? So that's a key important learner difference. As a planner of lessons, I think these are important things to take note of. The next thing that makes learners different is what they like to do, what they're interested in. Now, this is a very important, concept, that one of the things that motivates children to learn is, one, do I like this? Do I find something that I can, connect with in this? Am I motivated to learn it? I think those are very important questions, because once a kid is interested, then half the battle is won, because then you don't have to fight against gaining their motivation to learn, and the rest of it is really pulling them up from where they what they don't know, and helping them acquire the skills. So interest is a very, very important driving factor as a learner difference. And the final learning difference is actually even quite a complex one, is who is the learner? Because when you want to plan a lesson, to a large extent, we cannot take away the child's personal experiences, their homegrown, even some of the experiences that they had in their home, and some of the ways they prefer to learn can impact, right, how well they learn in your class. Now, I want to take this a little bit, I want to just talk a little bit about it. What do we mean by learning profile? Okay, earlier in my slide, I said gender makes a difference. A simple way in which gender makes a difference is boys and girls play with different toys. And when they play with different toys, they have different interests, right? So if you were to be a language teacher, you teach, about trucks, chances are they may not necessarily be interesting, intriguing for girls if they have been brought up in an environment where they learn with dolls, for example. Now, I'm not saying that we should always pander to the background, but I think it's important to recognize that sometimes the gendered experience of children can play a role in whether they will be, interested in the lesson that you plan. Second part is culture, right? And culture is an important, umbrella of terms. It involves what you bring culturally. I mean, if you're an Indonesian, for example, you have a different cultural experience about education. If you're a Singaporean, we'll have a different cultural experience about education. Our SES, our socio-economic status, also plays a role in the culture. Even amongst Indonesians, you will know there are some children who are actually, the home they come from can define some of the learning experiences they are ready to take. And that's an important point to keep note of. The next one that is a big thing with learning profile is how do kids like to think? Do they like to ask questions? Do they like to work in groups? Do they like to come up with new ideas? A lot of the way in which they think will determine how well they enjoy your lesson. So you may actually plan a lesson where you want the kids to ask questions, but if they don't like to ask questions, then you're stuck, right? So differentiation requires us to think about the kind of learning profile the children have in terms of thinking preference. And finally, learning style. Now, this is something that I think many of you have probably heard of. There's a lot of big research, a big talk about it. But I think one of the things that we all know that, especially with the digital generation, visual learning is very important, right? So we know that, for example, a video carries more push than, for example, say, learning by listening to the teacher in class. And that's an important point about the learner profile that we take into consideration when you plan your lessons, whether it's a digital lesson or in-class lesson. We have to provide experiences that are meaningful to the children, but at the same time that the children will be happy to use. But I want to talk a little bit about this. We do need to worry a little bit about addressing learners' needs, because a lot of times what happens is that people plan lessons based on what kids like to do or like to use. And this is one thing that brain-based research tells us: please do not stick to one kind of stimuli. So if a child likes videos, that means you just produce more and more videos. I think one of the things that brain-based research tells us is that we need variety and we need multiple opportunities. We also need good refreshment. We also need physical movement. And all of these are important because one of the things that we know is that learning is pretty much effective as much as it is cognitive. So learning and brain research tells us a lot about how differentiation will work. Now, having said that, how can we get started? So now we're going on to the how question, right? So we've looked at what differentiation is, why do we need to differentiate? Because learners have variety of differences, and we said, let's look at them in 3 different ways: readiness, interest, and learner profile. And now we want to think about what we can do in the classroom. Now, for this part, I mean, the process of differentiation is actually a very detailed cognitive task for the teacher. So the process can be as simple as you want to make it, or you can make it as detailed as you want. Now, because it's so variant, because there's so many things that are at play, I find that when we talk about differentiation with my teacher respondents in my research, it's always easier to think about 5 or 6 things that teachers need to look at in order to make sure that their lessons are effectively covering those 2 definitions. That is, that you adapt the lesson, but you go for maximal learning for the learner. So for that, we have, in Singapore, we have cast it as principles of differentiation. And we've kindly articulated 6 principles from much of the research that has gone on in this area. One of what I'm going to share with you actually has been gleaned from Tomlinson and Murphy's recent work. But of course, it doesn't look exactly the same because we have articulated it in order to suit our own local profile, which is what happens in our own Asian classrooms, in our own, syllabus requirements, criteria, etc. So what are these 6 principles? Okay, so there are about 10 minutes. Now, we all know Tong Royong. I heard it just now in your opening. And I think the important part about building differentiation capacity in the classroom is sometimes children are going to do different things. And we have to have children understand that if you want to hit a target for learning, it doesn't help that you have 10 targets. You have to have very specific targets so you know that you will arrive there. So if you have 40 kids and you have so many things you want to achieve, you have to make a decision as to which are the goals that you can pragmatically achieve in that time that you have, or the weeks that you have. So clear learning goals. Then the next one is appropriate degree of challenge. Now, I'm going to hold this for a few minutes and come back to this in a minute. And so the same thing with respectful tasks, because these are the 2 most commonly asked questions whenever I actually share the principles with my teachers that I train with. So I'll talk about this in a few minutes. The last principle I want to talk about is flexibility. I'm again very happy to hear that during your opening, you were shared, the important point of being flexible was highlighted then. I think it's important to remember that flexibility doesn't just mean that the teacher needs to change her teaching, but for example, if you have a group of 10 students in a group, right, and another group of 10 students, it doesn't mean that you have to keep the 10 students in the same group all the time. You may need to move them around, and that flexibility is important in order to achieve maximum learning for all the children, right? So let me talk a little bit about appropriate degree of challenge. Let me make it easy for people to understand. So what do we mean by these 2 principles? Now, for appropriate degree of challenge, I always like to use the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears. I think you may have heard of this story where Goldilocks goes into the woods and comes across a house where 3 bears are living in, and she goes in and asks for 3 different and she goes in and finds 3 different conditions. So one of the things about appropriate degree of challenge is really what I call the Goldilocks principle. So when Goldilocks goes to the table and finds 3 bowls of porridge, she says, one is too hot, one is too cold, and one is just right. Okay, and what does she eat? She eats the just right one. Okay, why is that? Because one of the things that we know is that if you have something that's too hot, right, it will burn your tongue. if something is very, very difficult, very challenging, it will stop the kids from doing what they want to do. If it's too cold, meaning if it's very boring and it doesn't have, it's too simple, the kids will just give up. It's not fun. It's not exciting to eat cold porridge. But if it's just right, okay, then you will be excited to eat it, fill your stomach, and then do something else after that. So one of the things about the principle of differentiation is that we have to figure out what is the appropriate amount of difficulty for your kids. All right, so that's an important principle. Now, let me turn very quickly to look at respectful tasks. So what does that mean? Okay, and in that sense, let me ask you this let's look at these two pictures. You have a picture which is in black and white where somebody's talking and you can see, somebody falling asleep. And then in the right-hand picture, the colored picture, you have some level of activity and the kids are doing different things. Now, most of us would expect a lesson because of our experience to do the black and white picture where one person is talking and everybody is listening. But I think one of the things we have to remember is if kids are different, then we have to respect their difference and offer them alternative tasks for the same kind of learning goal. So what respectful tasks is say, don't make kids do the same thing all the time, right? Change it up. So if let's say your kids are very weak in learning math, don't keep giving them worksheets after worksheets after worksheets. What this particular principle is saying is be respectful. It must be meaningful. It must be worthy of the time they spend. So the tasks you give them must be worthy of that time, right? So I think I walked you very quickly through this whole process of differentiation and shared with you these key 6 principles. And so with that, I shall stop here and I will allow you all to ask your questions. But before that, let me thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit on differentiation, right? And I hope that this has actually provided you with new insights. I'll be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Presentations, keynote presentations, and differentiations and diverse classrooms, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Latsme.
Yes.
I would like to, and then you talk about your sessions helps children make progress in their learning, and then I was saying that belief is a powerful drive for teachers, for example, to do actions in their classrooms. And Dr. Latsme, over to you, Bapak Adi. Bapak Adi, please unmute Bapak Adi. Yeah, hang on, Bapak Adi. Yes. Is it unmuted now? Yes, Bapak Adi, hang on a second. Mute. Oh, Bapak Adi, we requested to unmute you, so please accept. Okay, is it fine now? We have unmuted, but we requested to unmute you, Pak Adi, but okay, it's done now. Yes, Pak Adi, over to you. Pak Adi, kita
Perhaps,
sudah minta Bapak Adi untuk unmute. Tolong di-accept, diterima Pak Adi.
okay, maybe it would be good for us to let Mr. Adi
Mute.
post his
Adi, you are
questions.
still mute. Please unmute your mic.
Okay, I think it is. I have no idea, honestly
I think
speaking.
go to the next question, I think.
Yes.
Go to the next question. Wasting time.
To another.
Perhaps we can answer. I don't mind answering the questions on the chat function. Do you want to do that instead?
The chat functions. Yes, Dr. Laxmi. I have. We have questions. I think 3 questions. We will pick up 3 questions for Dr. Laxmi. The first is on the chat box. On the chat box, it is questioned by Bapak Fajar Yantika from University of Lampung. You talk about motivations and how important is motivations actually, and because sometimes we found students who have who are good at
Education and teaching, right? But what keeps you here for 2 days, right? What keeps you motivated, right? You got to put yourself in the shoes of the child and say what children, for example, like to watch, videos more. So then we have to ask ourselves, what would get a kid to read? In Singapore, I don't know whether it's the same in Indonesia. Many parents are finding the kids don't like to read anymore, right? Because the digital environment is so motivating that they don't like reading anymore. So oftentimes we ask the question, how do you promote reading for kids to enjoy reading, right? So instead of giving them textbooks or assessment books or whatever that you want to question, perhaps you can share your question.
Okay, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day all. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Adi Artono. I am from to integrate different cultural contexts and characteristics in multiculturalism to create an effective learning concept. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to give any question. Thank you.
Thank you for being so interested that you continue staying on and ask the question. Thank you so much. Yeah. It's a good question.
Yes.
I think there was a earlier question also on different student cultural backgrounds also in the chat group. So I'm going to try to answer both the questions at the same time. I think we have the similar background in Singapore. We have multicultural groups in Singapore as well. I don't know whether you come to Singapore, but someone was asking me because of my name whether I was from India, and I said no. And I said no, we've got different cultural groups in Singapore. One of the important things we have to think about is when it comes to trying to get different groups of people to share the same idea, I think we need to first accept that people have their own way of doing things. I think the acceptance level is the first place to start. So when I earlier mentioned in one of my principles, building community, right, which is an important principle of differentiation, very right in the center, right? I said that was the core goal. I think we need to help children accept diversity, all right? That each of us are different and each person can do things differently, right? Whether it is culturally different or interest-wise different, or even in terms of the pace of learning. Now, in Singapore, we also, and I'm very sure this happened in Australia, in Indonesia as well, is that there are a lot of children who have special needs who sit in our classrooms as well. And they struggle with either reading or writing or speaking. There are many, many differences. Now, one of the things we have to do is learn to accept that they have a place to live and to learn in the same classroom. And we have to learn to make it inclusive, right? So I think the best way to get a spirit of learning going with different students with different background, culturally, learning wise, etc., is to first accept that the classroom is not is meant for everyone to learn at the same time. I think that's the most important thing. And then the second thing is to say that because we learn differently, we are okay with having different activities for different children. All right. And I think that is the first thing that my teachers in school struggle with as a belief, right? They are very used to all of them doing the same thing because it's a lot easier, it's more efficient if everyone does the same thing. I think one of the things I find, even I think with a lot of teachers in Southeast Asia, a lot of our schools, in this part of the world, is that we're very used to the teacher being the sage on stage. We call it the sage on stage mentality. One person says, everyone listens. And I think that has to slowly be changed, right? That if you want to deal with diversity and differentiate, then different children can do different things. Now, the challenge for the teacher is in figuring out how to manage all these things. But you see, it's not challenging because if you live in a family, all of you do different things, right? All of you are different ages. You all do some things the same, but different things at other times, right? So how do we manage that? We manage that by accepting and by saying we all belong to a family, therefore we give and take, right? I think that's an important part of building culture. I hope that explains in a very quick way how you can challenge the belief that everybody must have the same way of learning. I think that part is not going to help you to deal with diversity. All right. So I hope that answers both the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Latsmi. Yes, just like Singapore, Indonesia is a multicultural, and we need to make children accept diversity, and they learn differently, so we make different activities for them. This, if I'm not mistaken, there was the point.
Yes.
And is it possible for the last questions, Dr. Latsmi? One more last question.
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah. Let's take that last question.
It is asked in the chat box by Ibu Feni Munifatullah. Can we give some practical solutions if we encounter the situations when students do not want to ask questions on or contribute ideas? This is our last questions. Would you please make it quick, Dr. Latsmi? Over to you.
Sure. Okay, so this one, we have the same thing as well. Some students grow up in homes where they don't ask questions. The fastest way to help children ask questions is to make it a safe place for children to ask questions. Make your classroom safe. Now, the fastest way I found with my young kids is to get kids to pair up first before they ask the whole class. So, for example, if I was doing this, I would tell my students, okay, the two of you, and you pair them up, make sure that they know each other and they ask each other question first. Because when I ask one person, it's less scary than asking the whole entire class, right? So we say, pair kids up, let them ask each other and figure out what they want to ask. And then they throw the question out to the whole class. So I hope that answers your question, Ibu Fedi, because that's a very practical way to get started with this question, with helping children ask questions. Because once they feel that they are safe and they can, practice asking the question ahead of time, then it makes it easier for them to do it as a whole class, because there's less fear that I have, asked the wrong question. Okay. And they slowly develop courage to ask questions with their friends because they are familiar with their friends, they're very safe, and then slowly you build that capacity. So I hope that answers you, gives you a practical strategy to do things.
Thank you, Dr. Latsmi, for your nice response to Dr. Feni's questions. And we are now at the end of this session. I mean, your keynote session, Dr. Latsmi. I would like, first of all, to thank you, thank Bapak Abi, Bapak Fajar, and Ibu Feni for asking questions to Dr. Latsmi. And finally, Dr. Latsmi, it was great question, great keynote presentations, and we still have abundant questions, but I don't think we have enough time to cover them all.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you very much, Dr. Latsmi. It was nice.
Thank you.
And yeah, now I'd like to move on to the second keynote speaker in this session.
Itu ganjilnya tuh.
Our second keynote speaker is Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Hanafi Muhammad Yasin from University Kebangsaan Malaysia. Associate Professor Dr. Hanafi, Bapak Hanafi Yasin, are you with us now?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Now we are about to have Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Hanafi Muhammad Yasin to present his keynote speech. But before we begin, I'd like to introduce Bapak Hanafi Yasin. He is currently a chairperson in the Center of Education and Wellbeing Community, Faculty of Education, University Kebangsaan Malaysia, or UKM, with specializations in special education. And then he has successfully supervised 12 PhD students, as he has successfully received research grants from abroad, and joint research grants from institutions other than UKM, such as University Pendidikan Sultan Idris, Lambung Mangkurat University, Indonesia University of Education, 11 Maret University in Solo, and they are all in Indonesia. And you also he also received joint research grant from other countries such as South Korea. And Bapak Hanafi Yasin has edited publications, articles in reputable international journals. Was it time consuming to read through your CV, which is very thick. And I think that's the point I need to convey to the audience. You are very active and productive. To save time, without further ado, I'd like to turn the time offered to Associate Professor Dr. Muhammad Hanafi Yasin. Audience, please welcome Dr. Hanafi Yasin. Over to you, Bapak Hanafi.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to introduce myself, interview me as the audience. Okay, firstly, I would like to share my slides. Okay. My title is today is Universal Design to create a better assessment. This is very important for the children at school. So user design. All right. User design for learning will help teachers create fairer and more reliable tests. It's also ensuring that assessment items are clear and concise. That will help educators will be able to accurately measure intended objective and listening cognitive load for studies for students, and teacher can create more reliable, valid, and fair assessment. As before this, the first keynote I've mentioned a lot of things of the children in our class. There's a multiple intelligence, and also it will by using user design, we will address their ability, the differentiated ability, especially in the testing. Okay. Okay, universally designed assessment are grounded on the principle that every student should be included in the target population to be tested and fair tested. So placing student needs and perspective at the center of the decision, it also will help create accessibility tests that will eliminate cognitive, sensory, emotional, and physical barriers. Yeah. So students in our class have a lot of different background. So by using a user design, will eliminate the differences behind differences by themselves. Yeah, the background differences, the cognitive differences. That's why in Malaysia we are now using a school-based assessment. Yeah? School-based assessment quite popular right now, and when using in Malaysia also we are using the school-based assessment. All right. Another thing is creating university design assessment. For example, like language skill, by using creating universally design assessment with non-biased topic or ideas that are familiar to all students will help make the information fair to everyone taking the test. For example, in Indonesia, there's a lot of different language. I know that in Indonesia, there has been more than 1,000 language, I think. So by using a creating a universal design assessment, there will be no non-biased language. Sometimes will be interpreted differently by other students. So to make sure all the students will know the meaning of the language or meaning of the terms, it will better to use a standard language for them. Yeah? When developing assessment item, teachers should analyze whether the language or context isn't offensive, insensitive, stereotypical, bias against of student due or culture or language, geographical, gender, disability, or other demographic characteristic. From Merauke to maybe from Merauke to Aceh to Makassar is too big, too big country, Indonesia. There's a lot of good geographical differences and also demographic characteristic will be different. So it's very good if when you're doing the testing, so should use the user design concept, especially in language testing. Idiomatic language. Yeah, what is idiomatic language? The use of idiomatic language in assessment item can lead to incorrect test result for students with different language abilities. So Indonesia, there's a lot of different language. So it's better for use a same language in your testing. But sometimes the language will be different interpret in the other region. For example, in Makassar or in Aceh, they're very so wide. So maybe a differences language sometimes will be interpret different meaning for the same terms, the words using in the test. But maybe this thing will be taken care in Indonesia because they are quite using the lingkungan. Maybe in your exam you take consideration the lingkungan when you're doing the testing question, exam question. For example, for national question exam, they are using the the same language, gunakan bahasa Indonesia. You are going to bahasa Indonesia then be taught in the whole Indonesia. So when idiomatic expressions are used in a test item, they can be introduced cultural bias for students who may get lost in the literal interpretation. This will make the student will answer the question wrongly. So you must take this consideration when you are do the exam question. For example, places like think outside the box, brainstorm ideas, and come up with an answer can cause confusion for someone who has not the ability taught the meaning of these phrases. It depends on the children understanding. Socioeconomic and cultural issues with languages used, some customs and product may not be familiar to students from different socioeconomic background. What I'm saying just now, different socioeconomic background, maybe in West Java and Middle Java, and also in Sumatra will be different in different customs, different. Okay, and assessment item asking students to solve a graduity maths problem could make the calculation more difficult for those unfamiliar with their context. Jadi kalau kita lihat soalan-soalan peperiksaan hendaklah dibuat mengikut kefahaman murid-murid. Tetapi apa yang kita boleh katakan seperti di Malaysia, ada juga negeri-negeri yang menggunakan bahasa ataupun dia kata logat, dialek, different dialect. For example, in Kedah, in Negeri Sembilan and Johor, they were using a different dialect. Sometimes the words are using different meaning, and they could not be understand in the Kedah. The word are using in Kedah will be not understand in Kelantan, for example. There will be different dialect. So the backyard swimming pool, for example, a backyard swimming pool, or garbage disposal, or concepts such as daycare for dog could be unrelatable for some students. So you must make sure the word that you're using in the test or question that were familiar for all students. Terutama sekali, for example, especially national examination, for national examination. When creating it in
Recording in
ataupun pelajar,
progress.
kebolehan keupayanya yang accurate, yang betul, accurate itu dapat diuji. Kebolehan dan keupayaan dia yang tepat dapat diuji. Sekiranya kita buat soalan atau peperiksaan yang mengandungi soalan-soalan yang mengelirukan ataupun mengganggu kefahaman mereka, kemungkinan mereka ni akan menterjemahkan berlainan. Jadi, interpret differently. And then they will answer wrongly. Actually, it shouldn't be happen like that. Jadi soalan-soalan yang mengelirukan, sebagai contoh macam di Indonesia ni, kawasannya sangat besar, meliputi keluasan yang besar, daripada Aceh sampai ke ke Makassar, ke Ambon dan sebagainya, itu sangat besar dan mempunyai bahasa daerah yang terlalu banyak. Jadi kalau buat soalan peperiksaan, penggunaan perkataan-perkataan daerah itu hendaklah dielakkan, dan menggunakan bahasa yang standard, yang piawai, yang standard language you'll be using. Okay. Baik, universal design for learning is an important consideration in developing tests that are reliable, valid and fair for all students, for all individuals. Jadi melalui universal design ni, dia ada konsep dia, iaitu peperiksaan tu, kita nak test, biarlah kita test, kita menguji murid-murid ni mempunyai ujian yang tepat. Ujian yang tepat dan dapat menguji keupayaan kebolehan yang sama, yang sebenar-benarnya. Jadi kita takut bila kita gunakan perkataan atau bahasa yang berlainan atau dia menterjemahkan makna yang berlainan, kita khawatir keupayaan dan kebolehan mereka yang sebenar tidak dapat diuji. Sebab ada barrier, the language barrier. Jadi ini perlu diatasi. The language barrier ini kita kena atasi. Jangan kita buat soalan, mungkin soalan itu cantik, boleh dijawab oleh murid-murid di Jakarta, tapi murid-murid di Aceh tak boleh menjawab. Murid-murid di Makassar tak boleh menjawab. Murid-murid di Ambon tak boleh menjawab. Soalan yang sama. Tapi mengapa keadaan seperti itu? Sebab kita menggunakan bahasa yang mungkin ada berkelainan, mungkin ada ketaksaan, ada makna yang berlainan, ada beberapa makna yang tertentu. Mungkin one word will be interpreted double meaning or three meaning of it. So it will be you shouldn't using the same word. The word that will be maybe have a lot of meaning. Jadi elakkan menggunakan perkataan dengan ada makna yang sama, dan kalau boleh perkataan yang sama yang digunakan maknanya sama diinterpret juga di Jakarta, juga di Makassar, juga di Ambon. Ini perkataan sama, terutama untuk peperiksaan. Ini contoh. Sebab kita di Malaysia, kita buat peperiksaan, sebelum kita buat peperiksaan, saya rasa ini juga kaedah yang sama yang digunakan. They will understand the question, then we will put it as a question. I think the same method you are using in Indonesia. But I'm afraid maybe because we have a lot different we're so big in Indonesia, different culture, different background, student, multiple intelligence, everything, and then they will interpret differently of the question.
Yeah.
Okay.
You still
yes. Okay. Do I have any time? Still got time?
5 minutes.
Can I go?
5 minutes. Enough.
5 minutes. Okay. When discerning test, keep in mind that assessment should be presented in a way in which all students are able to interact, navigate, and respond to the material without potentially confusing unrelated information. That is very important. This will ensure that students receive high quality assessment and educators receive accurate information about student understanding, performance, achievement, and progress. This must be remembered for all teachers. Don't make them confused. Okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay, thank you for your question. It's a very good question. So when a teacher like to setting an exam question, so teachers should make sure that the question will not confusing students. So you should use a word command that you use in your teaching, that they use in the curriculum. the testing, because we want to test the actual performance of the students. So we do not want the language differences will make barrier, and then the students cannot show their actual performance, So eliminate all those stubborn words, especially for the early children. You must make the question that the language is the age of the children. Yeah? Sometimes the children maybe do not have the language in their mind, but you using it in your exam, maybe they couldn't understand the question, and then they couldn't answer the question better or true. They would go wrong. Okay? So make sure they are in your teaching, and also in the books, and also in the curriculum. All right?
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank
I think that's
Thank you, Dr. Hanafi, for your response to Fajar questions. Now, I'd like to move on to the second questions. This is raised by Ibu Sekar Hairunisa in the chat box. She is asking, how do we assess children with special needs? Make it quick.
This is very good, because universal design is purposely the concept that is using in the special needs children. Okay, because why? Universal design is a concept that we used to all people, but it also can be used to the special needs. Okay, when you address a special need in the universal design, will we address the differences in the special needs? Okay, and also we will accommodate the sum of the question.
Recording in progress.
Measure for the deaf children. I'm always using the question, the sign language question paper, because we to address the hearing impairment children. They learn using sign language, so it's very good for them to have an exam. This will make the result of the exam will be high, different from the printed. When they read the question paper, they couldn't understand, because why? Some of the words they are not in their mind. When they read the word, they couldn't understand the word. But if you sign it to him, yes, he can understand the word, because it's very different from the word they read and the word that he understands by using sign language. So it's same to the blind people. The blind people, they are using braille by everything they read by braille, and also they are by hearing. Okay, so we should address their differences. Yeah?
Possible, and give them more time to respond to questions. And is it possible for us to have the one last question? Oh, not possible.
Yes, of course, can. Please.
We are questions because
please. I would like to answer the question.
Thank you, Bapak Fajar and Ibu Sekar, for questionings. And
Bapak Fajar is very active.
I'm sorry.
A lot of questions.
Yeah. Finally, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the end of these sessions, the first session of these keynote presentations. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Hanafi Yassin, for presenting your keynote speech. Amazing. And I hope that the audience can get, and I believe the audience will get benefit from your presentations. I mean, from
10, 9, 8, 7, 6,